I'm guessing that's going to take about half an hour. Yeah.
Roads reserved. What you should say.
Especially if you like this.
Well, nobody wants to be all the way up front.
Right. Yeah.
On the other hand, that's what's left, and I didn't want to make sure I didn't sit right in along.
No, you can set up front. Yeah. Yeah.
Once before, yeah.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Thank you all for, can you hear me? Okay. Okay. Thank you all for making the effort to come this morning. It means a lot to the family. I know some have come from distances, some very great distances, and so that's really appreciated. So thank you very much. My name is Jim Wells. I'm the husband of Reka Wells, who is one of Imra's children, and so I've been in with the family since the mid '80s, so for quite some time. Personally, from my own experience with Mary J and Imra, shortly after Rick and I got married, we left the area for about 10 years. So I didn't get to really start having a good relationship with them pretty much until we got back. We came back with 3 kids in tow, and it was very nice because then they started immediately becoming forming into the grandparent role, and I was really happy with that. In town, one of the reasons we wanted to come back, my mother was still here, Reka's mother was still here, Imra and Mary J were still here, and for our kids to have that many grandparents was wonderful to me because as a child I got moved away from my grandparents and rarely saw them, and so I always thought that was a very nice thing for our kids to have their home. And one of the times when we came back, we were actually renting a place in Cougar Heights, the neighborhood they lived in, for about a year. And our youngest, Dylan, was going to the elementary school there. And one nice memory is when he was done with school, Rick and I were still at work, so he would go and spend the afternoon with Mary J. They, I think they really treasured that time, having that couple hours of being together and having snacks, and so we really treasured that. So it's nice to see the memories. Wonderful to see the photos that were collected out in the other room. And so we have a few people that want to get to say some words, and then we'll open it up to the room. So if you want to come up. Doesn't have to be long, doesn't have to be well thought out. Anything that comes from the heart, from the head, would be appreciated. Couple things when the service is over. the family will be going to graveside service and then coming back down to this area to a place called Personal Best, which is, if you go out the front door, you take Albany Street, the cross street here, 1 block, turn left, it's right there. There will be some food choices there. Anyone who's not going to the graveside service but would like to assemble again at Personal Best, there's a lot of food choices down here around the Commons and up around if you want to grab a quick bite before reassembling. Those options are available to you. So with that, I think we'll get started with Jay. You ready to come up?
Hi, everybody. Thank you all so much for being here. Just a note, I did manage to only get about 2 hours of sleep last night, and then there was a power outage, 7, and for some reason, I have an REO Speedwagon song stuck in my head. I won't tell you which one. That's how it spreads. Other than that, I'm doing pretty well. And I wrote things down, so it'll be a lot easier to not have to think through everything through. Yeah, thank you all so much for being here. I really cannot adequately express how much it means to have every one of you here to help celebrate my mom's life. I know some of you traveled very far to be here, and some of you probably were able to walk here. I know my mom would be honored and humbled to see so many people come here today to help remember her. My heartfelt gratitude to each and every one of you. And I want to allow plenty of time for everyone who would like to be able to speak. So I don't want to take too long. Mainly what I want to do is to give you all a picture of what my mom was like. Not a completely comprehensive one, of course. Other people can hopefully fill in some of the gaps after this and speaking with each other later. But wanted to talk about the things that she loved most in life and gave her the greatest happiness. My mom was born in 1935 in Cincinnati, Ohio. She always loved Cincinnati, and I don't think she could have imagined a better childhood than the one she had. Her family lived in the suburb of Mount Healthy in a small house on Joseph Street. She got to grow up with a big extended family, aunts, uncles, and cousins that she and her parents and sister got to see all the time. She had many close friends that she kept in touch with her entire life. Her childhood was heavily imprinted on her. In the last weeks of her life, she said she kept dreaming about being back in her home on Joseph Street. One of her favorite things about Cincinnati were the Cincinnati Reds. Her love of baseball was a through line her entire life. She was always excited about spring training this time of year, and I know she would have mentioned many times that pitchers and catchers would be reporting. She went to many Reds games at Crosley Field, and she and her friends could sit right behind the dugout. Professional sports were a lot different back in the 40s and 50s. When I was young, she would tune in Reds games on the radio. 700 AM WLW out of Cincinnati was one of the most powerful radio stations in the country. And at night, we could just pick them up and listen to the play-by-play fade in and out. Later in life, she became a big Yankees fan and also a Mets fan, mainly because they were always on. If either team was playing, she would have it on the TV. Nothing pissed her off more these past couple of years than when the game would be on some random streaming service instead of on TV. It would literally ruin her night. She was a fan of other sports without quite the same level of devotion. She always rooted for Ohio State, her alma mater. She loved the New York Giants during the Eli Manning years and also rooted for the Bengals, especially recently after Joe Burrow became their quarterback. She even had a couple of years as a fan of the Phoenix Suns during Steve Nash's best seasons. She loved their fast break offense, which was really fun to watch. She always said one of the main reasons she liked sports was that they were real and that they were live. They were happening right now. She valued authenticity and found it hard to suspend disbelief to care about a lot of movies and TV shows. Another of her greatest loves was comedy. I got a lot of my early comedy influences from her. My parents loved Monty Python and would talk about their favorite sketches. When I was 6 or 7, I remember my mom telling me about this guy, David Letterman. He had this great new show, and he would throw watermelons and paint cans off the top of this tower. I thought this sounded amazing, and I really wanted to see it. So my mom made attempts on several nights to wake me up at 1 a.m. so we could watch together. But she could never get me to wake up. We were both really bummed that I was missing out. When VCRs were first widely available a few years later, my mom got one, and she would record Letterman every night. And after school, we would often watch together. I was likely one of the only 10-year-olds regularly watching Dave, Paul Schaefer, and the most dangerous band in the world. She was a comedy fan her entire life, and comedy was always my go-to when picking out something I knew we would both enjoy. But she hated laugh tracks. She hated cartoons, even as a kid. I'm not sure exactly why. I think it had something to do with suspending disbelief for something that was obviously not real. My mom was a school teacher for nearly 40 years. Over her career, she taught every grade in K through 12 except for 3rd. She often mentioned regrets that she didn't go to school for law or journalism. She always kept up on the news and was interested in politics from an early age, listening to congressional hearings on the radio. But she enjoyed teaching, and she was very good at it. Mainly, she really enjoyed the kids and found it really interesting how unique their personalities could be. She loved how weird some of them were and really enjoyed the ones who were funny and could make her laugh. She put lots of effort into teaching and coming up with fascinating lessons for her students, like taking her class to the pond next to Spencer Elementary and collecting water samples, then looking at the samples under the microscope so the kids could see all the single-celled organisms. She found life endlessly fascinating and did all she could to help the kids she taught see that as well. Lastly, my mom was a person of fierce conviction. She was steadfast in her beliefs and was never afraid to express how she felt. She was one of the most ethically consistent people I've ever known. She would tell me often that my grandmother, her mother, was a saint, and I know this formed my mom's rock-solid sense of right and wrong. My mom cared deeply about family and made sure to always keep in contact with relatives on both her and my dad's side, and made a point of telling me and my father to mend any issues that we had with other family members. She was a beacon I could follow then and now to always know the right thing to do. And she and my dad loved me unconditionally and were my greatest champions and teachers. I love you, Mom. We will all miss you, and we will not forget you. Thank you, and thank you to all of you.
Thank you, Jay. Lovely and spot on. For myself, we didn't share the same love of sports. I'm not as much of a sports guy, but certainly the comedy and current events. She had such a sharp mind for detail and argument, and so we really enjoyed that. The one thing I don't get is the suspension of disbelief in Monty Python. I don't think medieval knights really used coconuts to imitate horses.
That was an
but-
exception. certain things passed didn't. That wasn't fair.
Absurd was too.
Yeah, absurd was good.
fine.
Yeah, she liked absurd.
Yeah, so we definitely shared that. We know of a couple people that would like to come up first. So if Marty and Chris are still interested, if you would like to come up, please. Appreciate that. Thank you very much.
So we are Mary J, our Aunt J, my mother's sister. We grew up with her, so we probably knew her longer than many of you all did in the early years. But we really did love all the time we had with her. When we were little, she was around a lot. She hadn't been married yet.
She was such a fun aunt, and she did so much with us.
Yeah, she'd take us places.
When we were younger, and it
was wonderful times that we had with her.
Mm-hmm.
We remember when she went to Venezuela and thinking that was such a
we were
wonderful thing.
crushed.
We were crushed, but we thought it was
Yeah.
wonderful nonetheless.
Yeah.
She did have a bird.
Yeah, she did.
What was the name of that bird? I can't remember it now.
I don't
Anyway,
know.
but she always did many things. She was very worldly for somebody in that era because she went to many places. And if you look back on many of the pictures, she was all over the country.
The whole family went
yeah,
a lot of different places when she was quite young as well.
right, which was unusual back in that era, I think, more so. But she always did make us laugh, so that must be where the comedy part comes in too. And then I guess then you want to tell the story about the macaroni and cheese. So this is kind of a crazy
This is
story,
a light story.
life story. Yeah.
So she like Chris said, she would take us, different places. Well, one time we spent the night at her apartment, and we got up and she was gonna make us something to eat, and all she really had in her closet or pantry, whatever, was a box of Kraft macaroni and cheese.
Which I think had just come out or something.
Yeah,
So
it was, and everybody,
Oh, wow.
So she, she's, got it, cooking and everything, and then she's gonna, you had the powdered cheese, I guess, and she didn't have any milk. You were supposed to put milk in, so she put water in it instead, and then you needed butter to put into the macaroni after it was finished, and she's looking around. I don't have any butter. Oh, bacon grease. So she put bacon grease in water and gave us each a bowl, and we're eating it, and it's just kind of like we weren't going to say anything because Aunt Jay, we were just going to eat it no matter what. And she got some, and she took a bite. And she says, "Oh my gosh, put this down." So that was just a funny memory. One of the many fun memories that we had. But she took us many places. She took us to Natural Bridge. She took us to Mammoth Cave.
Take us to movies.
Movies.
Everything.
Ice skating.
Yeah, ice skating.
Things that we wouldn't have done had she not been there to
Right.
take us for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. As far as being a teacher, I just think she was born to be a teacher. She was just so good with us and everything. I can imagine, with little kids or any kids,
Yeah.
she would just be amazing. So.
Actually, when I was in first grade, she was at that school teaching.
Really?
Yeah, she was at the ball when I was there. So I do remember going to her classroom and seeing her, and so it was a good memory. But yeah, very special person.
Very
Yes.
special person.
Blessed to have known her all our lives.
Didn't get to see her as often as we'd like.
Well,
But
later
we,
in life.
we spoke on
Frequently.
phone
Yeah.
pretty frequently. So we're blessed to have that. So
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very much for that. I think next person I'd like to call up is Hunor with Emer's Sons.
Hi guys. I'm the brother of another mother. Yes. So it's nice to have you guys here. I don't know if you've heard, and this may be news to you guys. but Mary J doesn't have a soul. It's true. Well, that's what she would say to you if you asked her. She believed in what she could see and what she could prove and what she could count on, which is probably why she never got too sentimental about things like heaven or eternity. But she knew how to show up for people. She knew how to make you laugh without ever letting you get away with feeling sorry for yourself. And she knew that love doesn't need an afterlife to really matter. It just needs someone willing to sit next to talk about a good book you're reading, or perhaps how the Yankees or Reds are doing this season. That was her, calm, steady, seeing people for who they are, not just how they acted in the moment, which is probably how she survived nearly 40 years with my father, a college professor who believed every dinner party was an opportunity to lecture, whether anybody wanted it or not. While he was trying to be the center of attention, she was the rock, quietly making his insufferable ways tolerable for the rest of us. She loved a good political joke, especially if it was at the expense of anyone taking themselves too seriously. The world, with all its small and big disappointments, never made her bitter. Just right, the occasional, a little too honest if you're foolish enough to ask her opinion on something. She didn't believe in eternity, but she believed in showing up. She didn't believe in angels, but she believed in getting the job done. And she didn't believe in heaven. But if there's any justice in the universe, somewhere right now, there's a game on. Her students are asking interesting questions in her classroom. Her kids are coming over to talk politics. And her departed husband, friends, and family are giving her a renewed life. It has been said that when one comes into the world and when one passes away, it is time for celebration. Celebration for the new life yet to be defined, and celebrating the end of a life. Free from dynamics and definitions. I believe Mary J didn't believe in an afterlife as she enjoyed all of it, even the hard parts. She loved her rituals, words, dynamics, and choices. She loved being with people and all the simple and assuming joys that life has to offer. She lived as she died, pushing and wanting for what was more and what was once had. So, let's not talk about souls or eternal rest. Let's just say she lived her life exactly the way she wanted to, with her mind sharp, her standards high, an unwavering curiosity so good, and a knowledge of all the potential that life has to offer, that you would never want to die. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Runor. I think, Beth, did you still want to say something?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hello, everyone. My name is Beth. I'm actually honored to be here today and to celebrate the extraordinary life of Mary J. Tamas. My time with her is really brief, and really just the past 5 years as I'm in partnership with Hunor. But she was really fun to know and just wonderful to be around. I also really respected that she lived to 89, and in her own way. She wasn't one for kale smoothies or trendy diets. She ate what she wanted, when she wanted, even if it occasionally landed her in the hospital. And after that bacon grease story, well, now we know. But you know what? It didn't stop her. She lived a long, full life, proving that sometimes the secret isn't in doing what others tell you, but in finding your own way. She wasn't religious or spiritual. She had a strong moral compass that guided her actions. I witnessed her live with generosity, dignity, and commitment, always caring. And just not because of an external belief system, because it's simply who she was. Her courage in facing life's challenges without relying on faith showed us how to live fully in the present, finding purpose in everyday moments without needing anything beyond the preciousness of life itself. Her sharp wit was legendary, and her laughter, and the way she would disarm you with a perfectly timed quip. Even as her eyesight and hearing faded, her humor about it never did. She was always ready for a lively discussion, especially about politics, and also how to make the world a better place. She found joy in her daily routines, listening to audiobooks, sharing stories, watching sports, and being surrounded by loved ones. Her Libra nature shone through in her desire to bring balance and harmony to those around her, always seeking to make others happy. She was a true matriarch, embodying wisdom and resilience. In the brief time that I knew Mary J., I was privileged to be present during her final moments, which is why I'm standing here. As we held her and thanked her, Paul Simon's music filled the room, and we spoke her memories aloud, recounting stories and moments, offering images of her life for her to hear as she was leaving. And though Mary J. didn't believe in an afterlife, there was a sense of closure in sharing these familiar echoes. The music and the memories weren't necessarily guiding her spirit onwards, but it was rooting us deeper as we celebrated life for all that it is. Now, I don't believe in endings, and maybe because I struggle with the idea of living life with no promise of an afterlife, or maybe Mary J. and I experienced just the divine in our own way. Her life showed me that there's great love to devote to and life to be lived, regardless of what may or may not come next. But her heart was too touched and her spirit too big to simply cease. Although she may not appreciate this and probably wouldn't understand why I'm saying it, my prayer is that in her non-afterlife, she's present in some form. I really want to think that she's here with us right now, just watching us honor and love her for who she was and the legacy she unintentionally left. We're all here. We're celebrating the impact of a life well lived. And even if she no longer exists, we have the satisfaction of knowing her, being loved by her, and keeping her alive through us, which is perhaps the greatest afterlife of all. Thank you.
Thank you, Beth. That was very lovely. I'm not sure if no one has approached me and saying they want to come up, but we would certainly appreciate if anyone feels the urge, if they would like to come up and say something, please do so now. Otherwise, I do sort of feel the same way, that whether you believe in an afterlife where she is back with the people who went before, or she's somehow in a spirit form with us today, she certainly is generated. That spirit is generated from the hearts and the minds of everyone, the memories of the people here. So, if anyone would like to come up, someone would. This is Kendra coming up. One of my kids.
I didn't write anything down, I'm sorry. My name is Kendra. I'm one of Mary J's step-grandchildren, but it feels odd to say that because she was just one of our grandmothers. We were lucky enough to have 3. It was never a question. It was just how lucky we were. I moved out to California about a year and a half ago, and it had been a long time since I'd seen Mary J. She hadn't been very well the last couple times I had visited Ithaca. It was a real shame to miss her at family parties because she was so fun to talk to and so exciting to have around. But there were a couple times last year where she would accidentally call me because K is really close to J in the phone, and her eyesight wasn't very good.
Right next to each other.
And I kind of just assumed it was a butt dial. So I would pick up, and I wasn't expecting to hear anybody on the other line and say hello. And she goes, "Kendra?" And I said, "Hi, it's me again." And I was able to catch up with her once or twice as she was there, and she would complain a little about the hospital and the doctors, which didn't seem very fun for her. But I remember the last time that I spoke to her, we were chatting, and she said, "You should call your mother. I think she's a little lonely." I didn't tell you that, Mom. Sorry. And that really impacted me because I realized I'd been away from home, both emotionally and physically, for quite some time. And that request was sort of rattling around in my head after I heard that she had passed. And I don't know that I would have made the flight all the way out here without her reminding me of the reality and the closeness of our family. And I really appreciated that sort of wake-up call to be in touch with family and be there for each other. And I'm really, really thankful that she did and that I'm here with all of you. And it's so lovely to hear more about her life and remember how sharp and how funny and wonderful she was and how lucky we were to have her in our lives. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Kendra. Is there anyone else? Okay, you have someone? Thank you very much. Come on up.
Yeah. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Dan. For those of you who don't know me, I've known Jay since we were four-ish.
Yeah,
three or four.
Yeah,
and I was waffling on if I should come up with. It's like, yeah, of course. Your mom was amazing, and just hearing what you all have said about her. Yeah, and as Jay would say, very stubborn. But she lived by her rules, which were ethical. She was probably my best. She challenged me the most. She taught me in fifth grade. I got ahead of myself. And after school, we would go to Jay's and sometimes watch David Letterman, I think. But she anyway, I just wanted to express my thankfulness to have had her in my life. I get a little emotional, but I guess I admired her. I admire her as a person and her interest. She helped me, I think, just being around her with you, but also in school, to look at life in more like I think the ants. It's whoever was saying earlier. A couple of folks touched on it about just her curiosity and being able to have been exposed to so many things, and it draws you to more things. And I think that is the spice of life, and it's fucking great. And she made the best ginger snaps I've ever had.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And I'll leave it stop, but thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dan. Is there anyone else? You see how it can go? And just talk off the top of your head if anyone else would like to say something. Okay. Please, even if you don't feel like coming up here as we assemble here, and then hopefully people come to a personal best, share stories, especially with people who you might not know or haven't heard the stories, and get them circulating. Yeah, it's probably a good time. I'm starting to lose it myself. So. Yeah, we again thank you so much for coming and sharing from up here, sharing face to face with people. She really was a force of nature. You know, both giving and being soft, being a rock. You know, people mention that. You know, good foundation, solid. Sometimes it would feel like a wall, but it all came from, again, her ethics, her beliefs, and her caring. So please take that with you. Keep it with you. And thank you very much. Again, we are going to be family going up to a graveside service and then reassembling. Time is a little unknowable, probably within an hour or so. We'll be at Personal Best, which again is just a block away. Walk down Albany, take a left on State, and you'll see it there. There'll be some food options if you want to grab something. There's a lot of options down here, downtown, and hope to see you and catch up with you more. Thank you very much for coming.
This does conclude our service here this morning for Mary J. As was mentioned, we will be going with the family up to the Lakeview Cemetery for the interment, but please feel free to greet the family once they return to Personal Best. Okay?
Yeah.